Welcome to our PSOAS Release class. I am so glad that we could be here together today. This is a series 2 of our three-part series that we are working on. I think our next one is in November. I don't remember the date, but so welcome. Today we're going to be working on the hips. If you've attended this class before, you know that we're going to end with the PSOAS Release technique, which is a very deep stress relieving technique that helps to relieve any sort of tension that's been built up in the hips. We're going to begin today directly on our backs. So make sure that before you get there that you have your yoga blocks, that you have a bolster perhaps accessible so you can use it later on. I think that's it. So let's go ahead and make our way down to the floor, lying down on our backs, and we're going to begin in constructive rest pose. So if you can please open up your feet wide and draw your knees together, that would be wonderful. We're going to begin right there. Sorry. And get into a really nice, comfortable position. So just bringing ourselves to the floor, knees knocked together. This is a really wonderful pose to begin to allow the hip flexors to release here. And it might seem like you're not doing much work, but I can assure you that this is one of the foundational poses to help release and allow the hips to completely kind of relax. So if it feels comfortable for you, you can extend your arms out, maybe with the palms open. You can even come into cactus arms. Really depends on what feels best for you. And we're just going to take the next few moments to just center our attention on our breath. Allow our body to feel heavy in the floor or the mat, the earth beneath us. Taking a moment to just tune in with our body, to tune in with where we're at today, this morning, in this very present moment. Notice the quality of the breath coming into the body. Find a little bit of softness behind the eyes. Let the shoulder blades relax down towards the earth. Expand the chest to allow for an opening of the clavicles from shoulder to shoulder. Maybe you notice the sacrum resting comfortably down towards the mat. Let's take a moment here to drift any thoughts of the past or the future. Let them drift away from our mind. Allowing ourselves to be just here in the moment. This is a practice that bringing ourselves here in the moment is something we constantly have to potentially work on. I know for myself, I might tend to drift off into thoughts of what's next or what was, and I have to pull myself back into this moment. I often try to drift into my breath as a way to connect to this presence. Notice if you're holding on to any tension in the shoulders, maybe allow the shoulders to drift down even heavier towards the earth. Allowing the palms to remain soft. The opening of the palms is almost like an opening to allow energy to flow into the body. Being receptive to receiving anything that you need today. And let's begin to deepen the breath, drawing the breath into the nose, deeper towards the hips. And let's take a moment to set our intentions for our practice. Your intention can be something that you need today. Find this idea of being present in that feeling or that state of being. So I like to start my intentions with an I am statement. Maybe your intention is more of a mantra, maybe a repetition of a short sentence. Wonderful. Maybe keeping your eyes closed. Let's go ahead and open the knees and separate them. And then go ahead and open the arms up to a strong T, expanding through the chest. And just go ahead and drift the knees in and out to the side here. And just allowing the hips to gently create a little bit of movement, a little release as you windshield wiper the knees in and out. Pressing the back of the shoulders, the back of the head into the earth. Allowing for a nice soft movement from side to side. And just imagining the release of the hips here if they're feeling a little bit tight, or maybe feeling like the range is not quite there yet. Just invite a sense of softness and a sense of flow. We really want to refrain from forcing the body to move into any sort of shapes or movements that the body's not quite prepared to take on yet. So this is your opportunity to just allow your body to flow from one side to the other. Maybe notice if there's any kind of constraints or any sort of resistance that your body's working against. Try to continue to connect into the breath here. Notice the quality of the breath as it comes in. Perhaps you're noticing whether it's staying in the chest. Perhaps we can try to deepen that breath in through the nose, down to the belly. Maybe you notice the spreading of the low back. Let's do one more, kind of shifting from side to side. And then as you're ready, slowly make your way back in towards center at your own perfect pace. From here, let's go ahead and bring the feet hip distance apart. Extend the arms overhead. Interlace the fingers and reach the arms long, as if you're trying to extend out the top of the body. Maybe you find a little bit of release in the low back. And then from here, slowly start to lift the arms, keeping the hands intertwined and interlaced, drawing the right knee in towards the chest, and gently on your exhale, drive the knee in towards your heart. Notice any sticking points there, any sort of resistance from the hip. And then with your breath, on your inhale, press the knee away from the body, and on your exhale, draw the knee back in towards the chest. As if you're almost like inflating an air mattress. You're pressing and inflating and deflating. And with each exhale, try to see if the hip can release a little bit more. Let's go ahead and do two more here. Terrific. The next time you take that inhale, let the right hand rest in the front of the knee, and we're just going to gently create some rotations here. And I want you to imagine you've got that hip joint, and the ball and the socket are working together in harmony, inviting some release from the tendons and the ligaments that surround the bone. And as you breathe in and breathe out, you're inviting a sense of release, a sense of really nice fluid movement here. Remember to move within your own range of motion. Maybe you create a small circle, maybe you create a large circle. Either one is perfect. There's no kind of space that's specific. It's more really in tune with what feels most fluid for you. So nothing that a large circle or small circle is, whatever feels right. And you might even kind of interchange between the two, kind of working with the Small, medium, and then large. Kind of work down from large, medium to small. Just notice the muscles that you're using here. Go ahead. Maybe we'll go ahead and reverse the direction. Maybe kind of working opposition, opening and closing up that hip, creating that really nice harmony between the hip joint and the hip bone. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and do a few more. Wonderful. The next time you come back in towards center, let's go ahead and draw the knee in towards the chest. Take both hands in front of the knee. And this time, let's go ahead and extend the left leg long towards the sky. Anchor down into that sacrum. Really feel that low back, nice and in that natural curve. And then from here, let the left leg rest down towards the floor, opening up through the left hip. Now from here, we're going to go ahead and extend the right arm, and using your abdominal muscles, we're going to go ahead and bring our right leg through our midline. So just creating a little rotation here through the spine. Maybe you can feel a little bit of lengthening through the glutes here. So when we think of the hips, we don't want to just think of them in a very linear space. The hips and the low back and the glutes and the abs, they're all so interconnected and so important to kind of find that harmony between the two, three, so that we kind of take care of all spaces. So if you've got a really tight glutes, it's going to impact your hips. If your hips are tight, it's going to impact your glutes. Really always seeking that balance between the sides and the front and the back of the body. Now from here, as you're lifting and twisting, your right shoulder blade maybe down to the floor. If it's slightly lifted, that's okay. We want to try to find that stacking of the hips. And that right leg is just going to gently release down. So you may even just experiment by breathing in, and as you breathe out, let the leg feel heavy. And it might start to feel a little bit more intense on the glutes, on the IT band. Again, we're not trying to force the leg down. Now from here, we're going to go ahead and just roll onto our left side. So I'm going to take my left hand and kind of cradle the crown. And I'm going to keep my right arm reaching as we're going to reach down for that right foot. I'd like to try to stack the knees so that they're directly on top of one another, so that your knee is not lifted, but rather your knee is in its right space in relation to the hip. As you reach back for that right foot, we're going to be opening up into a little quadricep stretch here, but I want you to think less of it being a quadricep stretch and more of a hip opener here. So as you reach the right knee down towards the base of the mat, you're drawing the heel in. You're opening up the hip, and we're not trying to strain through that low back here. So if reaching for that right foot just doesn't seem accessible today, maybe it's just in your mind's eye. You might even release the foot. Maybe you lift the leg up, opening up the right hip. Trying to release the left leg, try to relax into that space. Take a couple of nice big breaths here. So we want to think of just opening up the front of the body. The psoas connects to, T12 to L5. So we're at the thoracic spine all the way down to the lumbar area. And it kind of connects at the midway through our torso. So we don't want to think of our hips as just really at the base, that hip bone area. It's far higher than that. So this is just a nice opener of the front of the body too. Great job. When you're ready, go ahead and release that right foot and reset yourself back in through the center of the mat. Draw that left knee in, feet face forward. And let's go ahead and take that left knee in towards the chest this time, interlacing the fingers. Taking the right leg up to the sky, energize through that leg, set down the sacrum, and then go ahead and set the right leg long to the base of the mat, opening up that right hip. This time we're going to go ahead and do that accordion, if you will, with that left leg. So inhale as you reach the knee away from the chest. Exhale as you pull it in towards center. Just finding that flow. See if you can kind of find that deepening of the breath here. Deep to the belly. Maybe finding either a 3-part breath or your Ujjayi breath. Whatever feels most connecting for you today. When we think of our 3-part breath, we want to think of that deep breath to the belly, the ribs, and the heart. And then the exhale from the heart, the ribs, and the belly. Maybe you're thinking diaphragmatic breath, so deep to the belly. If we're thinking Ujjayi, we're thinking deep to the belly through the nose, and an exhale through the nose with that constriction of the throat. So it creates that ocean sound. Just kind of connecting with that, whatever breathing feels most fluid for you. Wonderful. Maybe the next time you take your inhale and reach that knee away from your hip, or release the right arm out to the side and just create some circles. Again, experimenting with either a medium size, small, or large. And I really like to kind of think of this as an opportunity just to explore. One side might feel really different to the other. See if you can engage the core enough so that you keep that right hip down to the floor. We want to really eliminate any sort of shifting or lifting of that right hip. And that's really important because we don't want to be twisting through our lumbar area. The more core engagement we have, the more we're going to be able to really firmly ground in towards the earth. Keeping everything nicely placed and nicely grounded. Even taking your right hand and setting at your hip is a really great method to just get that tactic feeling, that kind of physical feeling of keeping the hip bone. It's just a nice little way to connect and physically to the body. Terrific. Maybe we notice a little bit of opening through the inner thigh. Great. When you're ready, let's go ahead and reverse our direction. So just taking the knee in the opposite direction, again, experimenting, being curious, I think is really the key here, is just being curious with how it feels, not labeling whatever it feels like. I know for myself, I tend to kind of, sometimes when it comes to my right hip, I tend to kind of make words for those feelings, and I have to just let that go. Just being present with it, and whatever it feels like, trying not to label it in any sort of way as positive or negative. Just as a state of as is in this moment. Terrific. Let's go ahead and do a couple more here. Excellent. The next time you find yourself with your knee in towards your chest, let's go ahead and draw that knee in one more time. And then from here, perhaps we're going to take the left knee and pulling through the core here. So it's important that you use your core muscles here to twist over towards the right. I like to keep my left arm out as a little counterbalance here. Also allows for a really nice opening of the muscles in the chest. Again, if this is feeling like it's just too much for today, maybe you set a block underneath your left knee, maybe a bolster. Maybe you don't come up as high. And just allowing the body weight here to be that guide. So just feeling that body weight, allowing the left leg to drift down towards the mat, giving the IT band a little stretch. Think of all the things that connect into the hip, all the muscles, all that contribute to some tightness, perhaps in the hips. Try to release into the leg, into the low back, into the chest. Terrific. And then when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and roll on to our right side, cradling our crown this time with the bottom arm. And this time taking that left arm back and reaching for that left foot again. It may be just in the mind's eye. Maybe we're simply reaching back and not necessarily touching the toe or the foot, but rather just finding that opening. Making sure to keep your abdominals nice and engaged. And when I say engaged, I'm not thinking to brace the core, but rather just that awareness that the core is on. You're keeping your pelvis nice and stable. And we're really not trying to facilitate this movement by arching into the low back, trying to keep your pelvis nice and neutral. Energizing through that left knee down towards the base of the mat. Try to relax in through the upper body. Wonderful. And then let's go ahead and release that left leg. And we're going to roll onto our tummy and just come into crocodile here. So with crocodile, we're going to just stack the hands on top of one another. Elbows wide, forehead rests on the top of the hands. And let's take just a moment or two here just to loosen up through the low back, relax through the shoulders, kind of finding a little movement through the legs here. Like a little rock, loosening up the low back, back of the shoulders, the front of the body. Terrific. And then when you're ready, let's go ahead and lift the forehead enough so that you're off the hands and slide the hands to the side here, almost at shoulder height. Feet are maybe a little wider than hip distance apart. We're going to cue into the core and to the glutes here. Elbows are going to tuck in, shoulders are going to pull back. And on an inhale, let's just come into a little baby cobra here. It's our first extension of the day, so we want to be really gentle. And then just exhale, lower back down. Let's just do about 4 or 5 of those. Breathing in, finding a little gentle baby cobra. And then exhale, releasing down towards the floor. Again, try not to force this. Keep your abdominals engaged, your glutes engaged, and that's really going to allow you to connect into the pelvis and keep everything nice and supported. Wonderful. And then maybe one more. Fantastic. Next time you make your way down to the floor, we're going to press our hands into the floor. Press up using our arms and come into our child's pose. Knees wide, big toes together. Press back into our child's, finding that nice little opening of the hips here. Maybe you extend out through the arms, totally optional. If you're taking care of your back today, maybe you want to bring your elbows in a little bit closer. If you want a little less of that intense lengthening the back of the body, whatever feels right for you. Now, as you relax into your hips here, try to find a nice deep breath into the hips. Allow the tailbone to drift down towards the heels. Allow the back of the body to extend and the arms to energize. Really want to stay aware of the back of the body here, breathing in through the nose to expand the ribs. Let's stay here for about 4 breaths. Taking as deep and as fluid breaths as possible. Try to close the eyes and just relax the back of the body, letting the hips kind of drift down. If you're noticing any tension in the muscles, let's just try to let that go for here now, just for this moment. Maybe you have to remind yourself to let go a little bit more. Wonderful. And whenever you're ready, we're going to go ahead and shift onto our all fours, coming into just a few cat-cows here, just to create a little bit of mobility through the spine. So hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, tops of the feet pressed down to the floor. From here, lift the crown. I want you to find that crown on top of the rest of the spine. Maybe even tuck the tail slightly under so that you begin with a nice, long, even back. From here, inhale, tilt your tail feathers up, roll the shoulder blades down, lift through the sternum. Exhale, energize to the inner thighs, the glutes, and the belly button. Press into the floor with the hands, spreading the back of the rib cage out and the shoulder blades wide. Inhale, open up, find that opening in the front of the body here. Exhale, pull in. As we come into our cow, maybe even release the tummy. Let the front part of the chest lift and extend. Tucking your tail under, energizing through the glutes, shoulders roll back, open up your heart space, find that lift. Maybe you can even feel your abdominals getting a nice stretch here. Terrific. Let's do one more. And then release back into that tabletop position. From here, let's go ahead and sit onto our heels and let's grab our yoga blocks. We're going to come into our kneeling lunge here. And I always love to use my yoga blocks for this, especially because we're easing ourselves into that space. So we're just going to go ahead and set our blocks here. I'm going to take my left foot forward. First, establish my knee to ankle placement. I even like to go ahead and find that back leg reaching back a little bit further to open up through the hips here. So as you're going to lean in, when we get into this lean or this lunge, we're going to really be careful that our knees and everything is nicely stacked like a really well-built house. So with the blocks at the side, it just allows a little bit for that tactile feedback here. And again, just easing into this opening of the right hip. Now, we want to be active and aware of where our low back is. We're not just going to allow ourselves to fall forward here. That may be just too much for the hips. This is like a really gentle practice that we want to kind of ease ourselves into. It's a practice of patience and just allowing the body that time to kind of adapt. And of course, if we're coming to this and we have some tightness or we have some weakness in the hips, this is going to feel very different. So we want to just come to it. Maybe you even need to take a little break from it, take a little shift back. Notice if you're holding any tension elsewhere in the body, try to see if you can just seep yourself into a space of softness. Now from here, let's go ahead and press into that left foot and extend the front leg. Toes are going to come towards center. Take the blocks with you. This is going to open up the hamstrings. Again, we want to think of everything as all interconnected from head to toe. Everything works in conjunction to one another. So your hips might be tight, but we also may want to find out any sort of tightness or weaknesses in the hamstrings. So shifting back through the hips, back is long, shoulders are still nice and square, your hands are resting on the block, toes come towards center. When you start to pull those toes in, it's like an immediate response. For at least for me, I can immediately feel the back of my legs wanting to like, woo, send me some notification that there's some sensation going on there. Terrific. Then when you're ready, let's go ahead and we'll shift back into our lunge. But this time we're going to take it up tall. So find that shifting forward, find that opening through the hips, and then we're going to move right into a psoas stretch here. So reaching the arms up about shoulder height, lifting tall through the spine. I want you to think of that marionette vision of that pulling of a string for the crown of the head so that you're nice and tall and spacious through the spine. From here, we're going to laterally bend over towards the left. Now, right away, maybe you start to feel some opening. It might even run down right through the front of that hip. I can feel it kind of flowing right through here, just giving that psoas stretch, that psoas a nice stretch. And again, it connects midway through the body and runs all the way to the front of the hip. So this is such a wonderful stretch to give the psoas. We know it. The psoas is our fight or flight muscle. It's muscle of the soul. It holds on to all of unreleased tension, stress, trauma. It's such an integral muscle to our emotional state. So just coming into this with this idea of being so soft and kind towards it, finding that lift, find that release. And then when you're ready, make your way back in towards center. Beautiful. Now from here, completely optional. You can stay here, just resting the hands onto the block. Alternately, we can reach up towards the sky, lengthening up tall, and then we're going to shift our arms back behind us, finding a little back bend here. So really gently opening up the front of the body. I want you to think of the front of the body. Everything kind of wants to lengthen and strengthen here, strengthening the back of the body as well. Again, this may be too much for the back, so maybe you'll avoid this. This is up to you. Terrific. Go ahead and release the arms. And we're going to take that left foot back and go ahead. Let's take a little reset in child's pose or shell pose with the knees together. So either in your child's pose, go ahead and extend the arms and just notice here as you come back into the space, maybe it feels a little more fluid, a little more open. Breathing into the back of the body, softening the shoulders, the jaw, the throat, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the cheeks. Just kind of letting the low back spread down towards the heels. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and come back into all fours. Let's do a couple of cat-cows. Hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Again, start with that stacking of the crown, maybe a lengthening of the spine, tucking gently of the tailbone, and then inhale, arch the low back, pull those tail feathers up, open up through the heart, finding our cow, and then exhale, energize through the inner thighs, pull up through the pelvic floor, pull in through the belly, find your cat. Maybe you notice a little more opening in the front of the body. It's just such a great stretch from hip to heart. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and do one more. Terrific. And go ahead and bring yourself back into that neutral space. Take your yoga block. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So finding that right foot forward. Again, really just find that placement first of the knee. And of course, as always, if you've got some knee issues going on, you can always place a blanket underneath this bottom leg so that you have some support underneath the knee. Don't feel like you have to do this directly if it doesn't feel good. Even that shifting of the back leg kind of beyond the patella is really nice and can maybe feel a little bit more comfortable. So as you make your way into our kneeling lunge here, try to find that long spine, maybe rest the arms on the yoga blocks nice and gently, and just easing into this hip opener here, taking care of the back, taking care of any tension in the upper body. Just breathing into that left hip. It's just such a nice way to kind of bring that awareness to that space. So it's such a way to really connect in and release any sort of tension in the muscles. Just breath is such a powerful practice to help really regulate the body's nervous system, to help release too. If we're not breathing, we're really creating internal tension. You can almost feel it when you start to breathe fluidly, you start to find the sense of space within yourself. This is really key to be able to release any stress. Maybe from here, you press into that right foot and start to shift your hips back. Toes are going to come in towards center, stretching out the hamstrings. Of course, as you pull that knee in, you start to feel the sensation in the back of the legs. It's just like that immediate, like, here I am. I'm right here. Terrific. And then whenever you're ready, we'll walk our hands back towards center, coming back into that kneeling lunge on the right side. So shifting forward, shoulders roll back. I want us to be really nice and tall here as we prepare to go into our PSOAS stretch. So from here, swimming the left arm up this time. And again, finding that rhythm that works for you, finding not that rhythm, but finding that space that works for you. So maybe just this alone is enough. You're getting that lift through the side of the body, you're extending the arm up, and this may be just where you need to be today. Making sure your abdominals are drawn in so you're not arching through the low back. Maybe you then rainbow the arm over towards the right side, again, thinking of being in between two panes of glass. Just opening up that front of the hip here. And try not to collapse into that right hip. It might be tempting to kind of really, to facilitate a deeper side bend, you kind of collapse into the ribs. I want you to be active through the core here. Reaching with that left arm up and over. You can even get that added stretch of the shoulder, opening of the ribs. Fantastic. Go ahead and swim that left arm back in towards center. And again, this will be optional. You can go ahead into a back extension by reaching the arms overhead, then swim the arms behind you, or you can just remain in a kneeling lunge. So really explore what feels good for you. This is such an optional thing, especially because we're in this space here. We got to be careful for the low back. But also, it's so great to feel that opening through the chest here. Wonderful. Release the hands, set them back onto the blocks. Let's go ahead and take the blocks and set them off to the side. We're going to use them again, possibly in a moment. So let's go ahead and make our way back onto the floor. Back onto our backs. And let's meet with our knees in towards our chest. Oh. Now from here, let's go ahead and just rock our body side to side. Massaging the spine, massaging the low back. Just giving the back of the body a little bit of love here. All those hip openers can feel like a lot on the back. So if it felt like it was too much, try to take a few breaths here to release the back. Maybe kind of create that stir the soup, moving of the knees, spreading the low back, and feeling all four corners of the sacrum, the lumbar area, really nice and gentle. Wonderful. Maybe reverse your direction opposite way, pulling the knees in and spreading the legs away from the body. Fantastic. And then whenever you're ready, let's go ahead and reset back towards center. Now we're going to move into some bridges. We're going to grab our block and we're going to take our block between our hands. So setting the hands on the short side of the block here. And we're going to bring our feet hip distance apart. From here, we're going to move into our bridges and kind of flow with the block as well. So the block is shoulder height up towards the sky. We're going to press into the heels and start to press ourselves up. And as we press ourselves up, we're going to extend the arms overhead. And this is going to give our psoas, the top part of our psoas, a nice little stretch. As you inhale or exhale, whatever feels best for you, go ahead and flow back down to the floor. And just kind of flow through each of these bridges at your own perfect pace, making sure to keep your abdominals and your glutes nicely engaged here. And that's really going to be important to keeping the nice integrity of the back, the strength of the back, so you're not, forcing or working too much through the back and not enough through the hamstrings and glutes and the core. Find a nice fluid breath pattern as you breathe in and breathe out. Wonderful. I'm going to do about 3 more. Maybe you find that lift and reach to the knees. Try to keep the knees aligned with the hips. Beautiful. And on the next one, let's go ahead and lift up. Now I'd like you to stay here for a moment, and we're going to release the block, but take the block with us, and we're going to set it right underneath our sacrum. So I have it on the lowest part. Depending on what feels best for you, you can have it on the lowest or the medium. And then go ahead and set your sacrum back down on the block here. And you may need to make some adjustments if you need to. Go ahead and take your right knee in towards your chest and then your left. So we're finding ourselves in a supported bridge here. Try to go ahead and wiggle in through so that you've got a little spreading of the low back. You can even kind of rock your body side to side. Nice. And then when you're ready, go ahead and keep that right knee in towards the chest. We're going to extend that left leg up to the sky. And we're coming back to this again, this hip opener here again, but this time we've got the elevation of the low back. Go ahead and set the left leg down, and that's going to open up that hip a little more. Now from here, we're going to keep that right knee in towards the chest, but we're going to extend that left arm. Perhaps you stay here. Perhaps you gently lean over towards the right. Depends on what feels best for you. Now, as we lean over into a gentle lateral bend, you may find yourself really getting into that psoas as it opens up from the hips all the way down to, or all the way up to the ribs. If this knee needs a little bit of relaxing, go ahead and set it down to the floor and just find that opening on the side of the body here. Again, this can be done directly on the floor. If lifted up on a yoga block doesn't feel like it's the right option for you today, do this directly on the floor. Terrific. When you're ready, let's go ahead and make our way back in towards center. Bring the right knee back in towards the chest, and then let's pull that left knee in towards the chest. And just again, rock your body side to side. Spread the low back. Give yourself some space here. Terrific. And then from here, go ahead and keep your left knee in towards the chest, extend the right leg long, energize through that leg, and then go ahead and set that right leg long to the base of the mat. So low back pain, we know is a really huge contributor to I mean, I was going to say loss of work, because there's so many lost hours of due to illness or due to low back pain in the workforce right now. But I think I read a statistic that well over 60 or 70% of the American population has low back pain. It could even be higher than that. And when we think of our lives, and we think of the sometimes sedentary nature of our lives, being seated more often, finding ourselves on devices, driving a lot, we have tight hips. So this is a really nice way to open up the hip, but also a nice way to release the back. So if our hips are tight, it's going to affect our low back and will cause low back pain. Maybe you take the right arm up towards the sky. Maybe you set that left foot down, and maybe we find our little lateral bend here. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and make our way back in towards center. And this time, let's take both knees one more time in towards our heart. Spread the back, maybe rock it side to side if that feels good. Try to release and breathe into the low back. Fantastic. And when you're ready, let's go ahead and set both feet down to the floor. And we're going to just lift our sacrum, using those inner thighs, using the glutes, using the heels to press and energize into the feet. Go ahead and lift the sacrum enough so that you could set that yoga block off to the side. And then let's come directly down to the floor. Now from here, we're going to move our way into Baddha Konasana, into our butterfly pose. So soles of the feet are going to come together. We're going to let our hips open out to the side. And we're just going to do a little bit of opening and releasing here. So from here, we're just going to let our hips open up. You can cactus the arms if you want to, opening up through the front of the body. It's really up to you. And now from here, we're going to just start to flow a little bit from kind of like a butterfly's wing, kind of opening and closing, flying in the wind. We're going to start to use those inner thighs and start to draw the knees towards center. And then use the glutes, using the outer lateral side of the legs, open back up into butterfly. So just we're going to do a few of these. Just kind of using the muscles in between the inner thighs to lift and draw the knees back to center. And then again, using that same kind of muscular structure to open up back into that butterfly pose. Allowing the hips to open up and expand. And then bringing them back in towards center. Use those inner thighs. Bring awareness to that part of the body. And then back and open. Let's do one more. Fantastic. Now, the next time we open up into butterfly, I'd like us to take our yoga blocks, and we're going to set the yoga blocks underneath the knees, and we're going to come into a supported butterfly. Now, as we find our way here into our supported butterfly, I'd like us to take maybe about a minute or so just to relax into this space, let the low back release, let the hips just open. Maybe we just let the arms rest out to the side. Maybe take one hand to our heart, one hand to our tummy. And just take a moment to settle in with your breath. We're going to get ready to move into our PSOAS release technique. But we want to just come to it first with a really nice sense of awareness of the hips, a release of the hips. Finding some fluidity in the breathing, some nice release of tension in the upper body. I know for those that are with us today, I know you've done the PSOAS release technique before. For those of us who are watching this video after the fact and you haven't done the PSOAS release technique before, Let me just walk you through what the process is. So right now we're in a supportive butterfly, allowing the hips to release. And as we're going to move into the PSOAS release technique, it's going to last about 6 minutes long, give or take. Every minute, I'm going to ask you to raise your knees up about an inch. And you'll hold it there for about a minute. And then I'll ask you to raise your knees a little closer towards center by another inch. And we'll do this about 5 to 6 times. During this time, you're going to feel potentially some shaking on the inner thighs. And the idea is to create a little bit of tension in the muscle, a little bit of that shake, which is going to release the tension from the area. And then when we're done with the PSOAS release technique, I'd like you to completely release the legs long, and I'll guide you through that, and just allow yourself to just feel into this moment. Allow the hips to be really heavy. Allow your body to completely release into whatever sensation you're feeling. Sometimes this can elicit a little bit of an emotional release. Please don't hold that back. I encourage you to let whatever emotions or feelings you're having to be one that is just something of a release. Think of this as a complete stress release, maybe emotional release. Just allow your body to feel and allow yourself to express yourself in any way that feels right. So from here, we're going to begin. So let's go ahead and we're going to raise the knees about an inch, keeping the soles of the feet together. Just kind of breathing in. You can feel the inner thighs maybe working. And just tune in with the feeling, the sensation. At some point, it might feel like your knees are shaking up and down. You're going to fly away. I assure you, you won't. You'll be absolutely fine. We'll stay here for about another 15 more seconds, and then we'll raise our knees 1 more inch. And let's go ahead and lift 1 more inch. And the sensation may feel even more intense here. Just allow your breath to connect. Continue to breathe with a sense of fluidity. Even another 10 more seconds here, and I'm going to raise it up 1 more inch. And there we go. Let's go ahead and lift it up. Now, it's really important that you check in with yourself, remembering that at any time, if this starts to feel like it's too much, you are the driver of your practice. Tune in, make it sure it feels right for you. Maybe you need to hold back a little bit. Maybe just even release the knees back down to the blocks. And 5 more seconds. We're going to bring our knees 1 more inch closer. Here we go. Let's go ahead and raise it up a little bit more. Just notice how it's feeling. Just might be very intense. Keep your breath fluid. If this elicits any sort of anxiety, maybe you come out of it and take a break. Maybe you try to soften your breathing, connecting to this very moment. Yeah, 5 more minutes, 5 more seconds, sorry. And go ahead and raise it 1 more inch. Let go of any labeling, any sort of judgment or expectation. Just feel into this moment. And on our last minute here, let's go ahead and raise it 1 last inch. Just hold for the last 60 seconds. In our last 10 seconds. Wonderful. And as we come to a close here, we're going to slowly and carefully start to lift the knees and bring them towards center. Remembering that this is a very deep stress reliever. So let's come directly into constructive rest pose. Knees together, feet wide. And perhaps for the duration of the remainder of this next few minutes, while we completely rest our body here, you either remain here or you go ahead and extend the legs out long, finding Shavasana. Just tune in with how you feel right now. As you're ready, let's begin to start deepening the breath. Take a nice big breath to the belly and a nice big sigh out of the mouth. Maybe you toe heel the feet if your knees are in constructive rest pose. Bring the feet back towards center. Maybe create a little movement through the hands and through the feet. Maybe give yourself a good morning stretch here. And then whenever you're ready, maybe you roll onto one side. Just take a moment or two as this transition from where we were to where we're going. Just releasing, taking a quiet moment for yourself here. And then whenever you're ready, let's go ahead and press into the floor and make our way up to a seated Sukhasana. Oh, wonderful. Well, welcome back. Let's go ahead and take 3 nice big clearing breaths, just releasing any sort of tension that might be still kind of hanging around. Just kind of let that go. So when you're ready, let's take a nice big inhale. And exhale. Breathe in. Your hands at heart center and Anjali Mudra. Let's go ahead and gently bow our head towards our hands in recognition of the divine that lives within us all. May your heart always stay warm. May your smile always stay broad. And may the light that shines in me honor and see the light that shines in you. Namaste. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for joining me for today's practice. I hope you feel a little sense of like this flower blooming as you've released any sort of tension in the hips. As you know, this practice can be done anytime. The PSOAS release technique, I often recommend maybe once a week. I wouldn't do it too often without preparing beforehand. So please refer back to this video again if you feel like you need to kind of get those hips nice and loosened and released. So from my heart to yours, thank you so much for coming and joining my practice today. And I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Thank you. Namaste.